Good morning. I did my essay on the 80s, because I'm an 80s girl. And as everybody knows from reading their books, that, way back in history, cosmetology has always been around. Wasn't necessarily called that. However, in ancient times, hair and makeup actually showed status symbol of the hierarchy. And nowadays, it's pretty much fashioned through either magazine or TV actors, actresses. So it's more like trending with what you see instead of as a status symbol. Back in the day, Cleopatra used the Dead Sea to help with facials, and Nefertiti, she was known for using different emollients for fragrances, as well as henna for nail polish. Wasn't necessarily nail polish, it was more like a stain. And then as the years went on through the Renaissance, another status symbol for showing intelligence was the shading of the brow or the hairline. They thought that if you had a high forehead, that showed more intelligence. Not necessarily, but they thought so. And as the years went on, the Victorian age, makeup started kind of lingering away. There were more restrictive area. They showed more with your garments, more elegant clothing. Women, in order to show, more facial color, would either pitch their cheeks or bite their lips to give a little extra glow. And in the 1900s, a gentleman came along, Mr. Gratu, and he came up with the first curling iron. It was using tongs on a gas burner. And as the years went on, he started, working with different things, and he ended up creating a more permanent way, using, they didn't have electricity, excuse me. So he used other methods for creating different styles. He came up with the first perm waving machine that didn't need to use heat. And as well, he ended up creating barber clippers and safety razors. In the 1920s, the Associate Masters Barber of America came along, and they later changed their name to the Associate Master Barber and Beauticians of America. In 1929, they adopted a code of ethics to show professionalism amongst them all. Later on in the 1930s, Arnold Willett came along, and he developed the cold wave, which is the perm, instead of using the big electric equipment where they had the big thing over the head, pulling the hair up and having electricity going through to heat the hair, to keep the curl. He came up with the cold wave, and then later on, a gentleman by the name of Ronald Whittington came up with similar product, but it was more of a relaxer. Instead of curling your hair, you would put the chemical in and use a comb to straighten your hair. Later on, in around 1932, Charles Revson came about, and he started using different products through the automotive industry, their paint, and he came out with nail polish, and later became Revlon, which is very popular cosmetic. In the 1960s, Vidal Sassoon came around, and they were known for the geometric cuts, different styles that really, you didn't need product to hold that hairstyle. It was cut that way, so it didn't matter what you did after washing, it didn't actually go back in that position. Later on in the 70s, highlights came around in France, where they started lightening the hair. In 1980s, ammonia-free hair coloring came about, and then the newer salons came about, where instead of just going for cutting hair, coloring hair, and having your manicures and pedicures done in separate areas, they came up with the day spa, where you could go in and actually have a whole day to yourself. You can start with your hair and go all the way down to your toes. And it was Noah DiCaprio that came up with that idea of having the full service salon. Then in the 1980s, that came about, and that was known as the age of excess. Bigger is better. My mom model did actually have bigger poofy hair, but I guess the climate decided to fool that. But in the 1980s, that was a big deal. Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, different, pop and rock stars, they came out with the big hair, bright colored makeup. Neon clothing was really popular. You could wear anything from like tight skinny leggings to parachute pants, big shirts, really loud colors was the trend for the 80s. Michael Jackson sported the Jerry curl, which was a heavier version of the afro, used more product to hold it down, and it was really glistening, a slick look, but the tight little curls. And can't forget the rat tail. That was you would think a short-lived trend where people would have just the little braid down the back of the neck with the rest of the hair being short. Yeah, not very popular in my eyes, but you still see that every now and then. Along in the 80s, the style came about where instead of women having long hair and men having short hair, Sinead O'Connor decided to protest by shaving her head. And that whole trend came about as well. Instead of men having the short haircuts, they started having the longer hair. And along with that, the preppy look came about. The preppy look in the 80s was the Oxford shoes with the khaki pants and the, Izod shirt, little collared shirt. Everybody, as far as, not necessarily a status, but you could set the groups aside. You could tell who was who. The rockers would have, dark clothing like the Gothics. The high-spirited people would have bright, lavish clothing. The more preppy style, you could actually see different areas where people had, their own style and would fit in that way. Another era of the 80s came about was the Gothic. That was, where people would have really pale skin, lavish, dark makeup, like you couldn't even see their eyes. They would just draw on really thick, heavy mascara and black eyeliner. They'd also have their nails painted black instead of the lavish color. They'd wear big, baggy black clothes. Just seemed kind of morbid, but they weren't necessarily. They were just kind of in their own little area and kind of kept to themselves, not very outgoing type people. They were pretty much, just on their own. The 80s has always been around as long as, all the other eras. If you ever heard that history repeats itself, that's the reason why. It's not necessarily that history is repeating itself, it's just that different trends come about, and everything started way back before we could even conceive of time with minerals and herbs and whatnot, making our makeup. And as the years have progressed, different techniques have come about to just increase it. And popularity is just, your own style. You set what it is that you would like to